Hear me? Are we good? First of all, my name is Patricia Dorff. I'm really excited to be here. I want to thank everyone for coming, and Corey and Wendy and Anna and Kelly for making the arrangements. I'm going to ask if you guys don't mind, because I really love that it's not too group. I brought enough material for about 30 people, but if you guys could just move a little bit closer. I like kind of having some more intimate setting. And in particular, this is going to kind of be a little casual. I'm here. Oh, yeah, that'll help. Okay, does this sound better? Okay, I'm here to help you. So I've talked both to Wendy and Anna and Kelly to try to get an idea of, what things I could say or what things I could do to help you guys in terms of your own professional development. What I'm going to try to be speaking about today, because I don't want to double mic, is providing some concrete tools and strategies for editing and for writing. I'm going to talk about the various stages of the writing process and how to how to write well and edit yourself. One of the things I really want to stress, I am editorial director, which means that I'm in charge of all content at the Council on Foreign Relations except for CFR.org and the Foreign Affairs magazine, which I used to be an editor at. And as an editor, I'm not suggesting that you are all going to come on board and become editors or that this is necessarily a career. However, I will tell you and stress to you that being able to write well is a skill that will serve you in whatever profession you go into. At the Council on Foreign Relations, we have a style guide, 60 pages. Everyone who works at the Council is responsible for knowing that style guide. And my joy of editing is because, to me, being a good editor means being a good critical thinker and a critical reader. And those skills, editing and thinking, go really hand in hand. Oh, that is my phone. Just hold on. I'm sorry. This is terrible. Let me just turn it off. Could be my son, probably, but oh, it's my daughter. All right. You guys are Mormons, so I know it'll be okay with family, but anyway, I have 2 kids. They like to call, especially when mom's not at home in New York. So, why is critical reading important? Critical reading is important because there's an intrinsic relationship between critical reading and critical thinking. They said they do go hand in hand. One of the things that I'm most proud of is that as an editor, working with senior fellows, I found that becoming a good editor has made me a better thinker. And if you think clearly, you are by nature a good editor. So we're going to start. First, I thought I maybe would spend a couple minutes talking about myself, who I am, and how it is that I can speak on this subject. I was raised in California, in Los Angeles. I went to UCLA undergrad in history and international relations. Did a semester abroad my junior year, which I encourage everyone to do if you don't do your mission work. It's wonderful living in another culture, well, I wasn't speaking another language, though speaking English. But it was a terrific experience for me. I decided to go into international relations, went to Georgetown, did my master's in IR, and then I went to New York, to Columbia, to do graduate work. And while I was there, I had a professor of mine from UCLA call me up and said he had joined the council as a senior fellow and wanted to know if I was interested in being his research assistant. And at the time, this tells you when you're young and you think the world is open and you can do anything. I said, well, I'm going to work on my dissertation. I really don't know if I have time, to do this. And he said, well, come write your dissertation. So I thought, okay, you're going to pay me, right? This is a good thing. So I went there with no expectations. I literally remember the woman who's now vice president of human resources, she was then just director, telling me about the pension plan, and inside rolling my eyes like, oh yeah, I'm really going to be here. Okay, that was almost 30 years ago. You never know what's going to happen in life. And one of the best advices I can give is to be open to different experiences. And although you're very much, I think when you're looking for jobs, or you're senior and thinking about what you're going to do next time, perhaps you're thinking, oh, I really want to focus on this, and this is really what I have my heart set on. Be open to other possibilities. Be open to different avenues. You'd be surprised how things just happen, God's will or whatever. There is a plan. And as much as we think that we know what it might be, sometimes you just have to have faith that it's going to work out. So in my case, I was really lucky. And I worked as a research assistant for the studies department. And then I moved to, I was telling you the story, I met the managing editor of Foreign Affairs in the elevator. And I'd had a biking accident the day before, and I looked terrible. I was black and blue. And he saw me and said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Oh, I was in Central Park, I had a biking accident." And he said, "What are you doing here?" And I said, "Well, there's a meeting going on that I'm supposed to be helping out." And so, I didn't think there was anyone else that really could do it, so I came. 2 weeks later, there's an opening at the magazine. And I applied with no editing experience, none whatsoever. I had gone through the graduate program. I was a big reader. And obviously, I had, read my friends' papers and such. I had no real editing experience. I was hired. I think the reason was because he saw me, and the fact that I was willing to show up on a day, just do that extra bit, which reinforces a lesson that my former boss from the Council on Foreign Relations president, Leslie Gelb, says. Your first job is often going to be, or could be the result of who you know, right? Your second job is really going to depend on yourself. And you yourself have the resources to get the job that you want if you work hard and you do what needs to be done. You never know when you might have that elevator connection, right? You have to be prepared all the time. And so being willing to make that extra effort is really, really important. So I have introduced myself. And since this is kind of small enough, I want to take this time to quickly have you guys introduce yourselves. Tell me your name, tell me your year, quickly your major, IR, whatever, and I want to hear my favorite thing, the last book you read. And we'll start with Kelly. I'm going to, everyone, even my sister-in-law and my niece, who were kind enough to come here, get to participate. So, yes. Yes.
Okay, great.
We'll make it quick, but yes.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I'm Kelly Blasian. I'm the event coordinator here at the Kennedy Center, and the last book I read is 3 Nights in August about the St. Louis Cardinals.
Ooh.
I'm Ann Ortiz. I work here at the Kennedy Center. I'm not going to confess the last book I read, but my favorite book that I recently read was 1986.
I'm Tammy, soccer major. The last book I read was Nickel and Dime.
Was what one?
Nickel and Dime?
How was? Oh, with Barbara Ugridge, yes.
Right, yeah.
And Cammie?
Yeah.
Ryan Newell, a junior Middle Eastern Studies major. Last book I read was actually this year, Revival by Bobby Nasser.
You taking Arabic? Good.
I'm E. Paxton. I'm majoring in social cultural anthropology. I want to do applied anthropology. And
that sounds like
I read
so much
like
fun.
20 books at once, so I'm reading
Me too.
Harry Potter and Crime and Punishment like Swan's Way right now. So.
Like me, okay, we can put out.
I'm Elizabeth Nelson. My major is international relations, and I'm a junior. And the last book I read was Unbroken.
That's a great book. And what is your name again?
Elizabeth Nelson.
Elizabeth. Okay. Well.
My name is Megan Hilmo. I'm a junior, and I'm studying sociology. And the last book that I read that wasn't a textbook was called The Monster Calls.
It's so great to hear you guys actually reading fiction. This is really nice.
My name's Hunter Brown. I'm a music major. And the last book that I read was The Crying of Lot 49 by Thomas Pynchon.
Oh, yeah.
I'm T.C. Corliss. I'm an MPA. The last book I read was Never Eat Alone. It's in that one.
Oh, that's
My name is B.C. Byer. I'm a sociology student, and the last book I read was The Suicide Brothers.
Good.
My name is Paula Thomas. I'm an MA student. I'm doing Hispanic literature. And the last book I read was Cartas de Relación by Hernán Cortés.
I do encourage people, if you don't read the Spanish, actually, reading books and translations, Culturally, I think is the next best thing to going to the country. I'm a big fan of reading translations of books. I don't speak Spanish, my son does, but I think it's fantastic. Yes?
Joseph, European Studies major. Last book I read was Siddhartha by Herman Hesse.
That's one of my favorite. And what's your name again?
Joseph.
Joseph, okay.
Hello, Dan Kizik. I'm a junior, I guess. I don't know, I'm between a couple of degrees right now. But the last book, well, the books I'm reading right now are We the People and The White Man's Burden.
I'm Simeon. I'm a television broadcasting major, and the last book I read was 18 McDonald's, which is a Lincoln novel.
My name is Ethan Kennedy. I'm a senior studying international relations and German studies. The last book I read was Harry Potter and Polish.
Harry Potter is one of my favorite books as well, in our family too.
I'm Danny Henson. I'm a senior major in linguistics. Last book I read was
My name is Cameron Scott. I am a senior in ancient Near Eastern studies, and the last book I read was a history book on Jewish history.
Which one?
It's called Jewish Literacy.
Oh, by Joseph Tilikin? Yes. Yeah, it's a great book.
I'm Jasmine Wei, I'm a junior, Chinese major, and the last two books I read were Blood of Olympus and Guide to Fire.
My name is Sarah Kwan, and I'm studying geography, and the last book I read was Truman by David McCall.
Oh, that's a good one.
I'm Christian Curtin, studying history and striving to be employable by adding Asian languages.
Good.
It's funny because it's true.
It is.
And last book I read was M. Pays Over the Top, but you know I do look forward to reading nonfiction or fiction every time that I'm not don't have professors breathing down the back of my neck, which should be Thanksgiving.
It's just a week away. And you'll have some good selections of stuff that you might want to think about.
I'm Marcos. I'm in economics. I'm a junior in economics. To be honest, last book I read was so bad that I can't remember the title. It's romance, so.
All right, you get a pass. Well done.
I'm Brandon Pedersen. I'm a junior Russian major, and I'm currently reading The Brothers Karamazov. In English. I've read half of it in Russian.
My name is Aaron Toon. I'm a sophomore studying manufacturing engineering. The last book I read was The Prince by Machiavelli.
My name is Igor. I'm a sophomore in the finance program. And the last book I read was Sonho Grande by Jorge Paulo Levi.
I'm Celinda Carlson. I'm a senior in nutrition, and the last book I read was part of Sherlock Holmes' adventures.
Tim Smith, psychology. The last book I read was Train for the Clouds by Maya Angelou.
My name is Liza Smith. I'm a junior in high school, and the last book I read was Adventures of Huckabee.
I'm Sam Deering, studying history. I'm a senior. The last book I read was Midnight's Children's Song.
It's a great book.
I'm a student studying history in Arabic, and the last book I read was The Boys in the Boat.
That's another great book. Good.
Brian Merrill.
I'm taking a list just of books that I want to read, so you know.
Brian Merrill, I'm studying molecular biology, and the last book I read was on Cook. I'm Cameron Sargent. I'm also studying molecular biology, and the last book I read was A House of Fables.
Molecular biology.
Yep.
Excellent. I love getting scientists and mathematicians in my class.
I'm Emily Wolf. I'm a senior studying public relations, minors in nonprofit studies. And the last book I read was Every Good Endeavor by Timothy Keller.
I'm Fred Penninger. I'm the Associate Director of the National Scholarships and Programs Office at BYU, here in Wilson, warm bodies with whatever scholarship.
Excellent.
I just finished the EF volume of the 1880 Chambers Encyclopedia.
Wow, light reading. I'm impressed.
The last book I read was the title of it, I can't remember the title of it. It's about Ben Franklin
Oh, Book of Ages.
Book of Ages.
Yes, Book of Ages by Jill Lepori, which I highly recommend. She just came out with a new book called Superwoman. And Book of Ages is about the story of Ben Franklin's sister, the history that's not told of women in 18th century.
She would have done the DNA stuff if they had thought.
Yeah.
I'm Rachel Dorff, and I'm in 8th grade, and the last book I read was What If by Randall Munro.
Wendy Nell, an advisor of the Kennedy Center, and the most interesting part of what you're reading is survey of art history, auditing art history.
I moved from the front to the back.
I'm going to invite my niece to come up to help me hand out. There are going to be some editing tests. Now, I have here, yeah, that'd be great. So, this is part of my interactive. Lindsay, that's not open to that. This is an editing test we're going to do. So it'll be 5-10 minutes, don't worry, and I won't grade it, I promise. You're going to keep it yourself. I use this test because I think it's really helpful. You know, we talk about editing and reading stuff carefully, and I find this is a really useful way to actually see what you know. So I don't want you to turn the page. This is like the SAT. Do you want to say everything? Here you go, guys. Do we have enough? Okay. Okay, here we go. How are we doing? Okay, we got an extra one there? Great. Okay. And got enough here? Okay, so I'm going to give you guys 5 minutes. Oh, yeah, yeah. I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes. It's the last one. You guys get to share. And don't turn the page, as I said. You go through. You're looking for errors of grammar, facts, spelling. And if you see a place where you think you could kind of like shorten the language to make it more concise or clear, feel free. While you guys are doing that, I have some more handouts. I'm going to just pass it along. Sorry. Yeah. So just take one of each and pass it along. I like your band. Okay, here, I just 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Go. good. And then I'm just going to need one of these so you guys can share. Okay. Which one? Hmm?
Do you have another copy of these?
Yeah. One of each. Okay, guys, thanks. Here we go. Okay, how are we all doing? Well, read it. We found lots of mistakes. It's really badly written. Yes, I know, purposely. So let's go. Okay, we're just going to start because we only have another hour or so, and I want to leave a little time at the end for Q&A. Let's look at that first paragraph. Now, what I find, this is an example where good writing will hold you in good stead regardless of where you do. How many of you write emails? Everyone, right? Right. First rule in an email is that the first sentence should tell the reader or the audience what it is that you want, what the purpose of that email is. Okay? I write a lot of emails. I probably write over 100 a day, easily, because I work with a number of different people, and I need things from them or I need to give them updates. I always make sure that I summarize in that first paragraph or that first line what it is what the purpose of this email. I am following up on a conversation we had about this. Often what you'll have is sometimes, especially if you're, kind of writing an email, I have gotten emails where someone will write to me, I can't figure out what it is that they want. It's kind of like buried. It's like, so I was wondering if, after they tell me this long story, right? And I think that's what it is that they're asking me. When you're dealing with the professional world, as you go out and you're looking for jobs, you're applying for things, or you're following up on job interviews or checking on a possibility for a job interview, make sure that you're clear, you're concise, that the first sentence, read it again, think of your audience, conveys what it is that you want from them or what information you're trying to get them to understand, okay? Now look at this first one. This one is not only sort of kind of loosey-goosey, but it also has some grammatical mistakes. So looking at this, let's sort of start this out. Who wants to start in terms of the first sentence? Can someone find a mistake? Yes. And you're? Joseph. Okay.
Thank you so very much for meeting with Jack, Sandra, and me yesterday at our office.
Okay, excellent. Why not myself? Well, it's grammatically incorrect, right? How do you know? When you do A, B, and C, what's the rule?
You remove the other people and see if it works.
That's right. Absolutely. So you wouldn't say, thank you very much for meeting with me. For meeting with myself. Now, let's try to think also concise, right? People don't have time when they're reading emails. They read them quickly. They often don't want to read them twice. So you don't want to have redundant information. What else do you think you could take out of that sentence?
I guess I'd cut the so very much, or at least thank you
Mm-hmm.
for reading.
Can you think of another one? Can we see something else that we could take out? Right. Like the person doesn't know where you guys met. They were there too, right? Keep it very quick, right? Jack, Sandra, and me yesterday. Okay, next sentence.
I just have a quick question. In your stylistic opinion, should Sandra have a comma after it, or should it very much?
That's an interesting question. Okay, you wanted the rule of thumb? Best advice I'm going to give, I have lots of great advice. One of the good pieces of advice. When you get an email, follow the direction of the person who sends the email, both in tone and punctuation. So if somebody addresses me and they use a colon and they say hi, don't ever do hey, all right? No. But hi, Trish, or dear Miss Dorff, or dear Tricia. Depending on what their tone is, if they address me as dear Miss Dorff, I will usually reply, say Trish at the end. But if they use a colon, I'll often use a colon. If they use the salutation of, hi versus dear, I'll follow that direction too. So there's really no rule of thumb. You could go either way, but I find it's just sort of a nice, to be sort of sensitive to be in that same, to use the sort of the position that the other person is taking, the tone that they're taking. And for something like that, it could go either way. But what about the second sentence? Yeah, take a look. Go ahead. Between the three of us.
I guess my stylistic opinion, after product, I put a semicolon, just to shake it up.
Okay. But what about the between the three of us? Has anyone noticed something? Speak up loud, because I'm sort of, it's, yeah.
Yeah, so it's unnecessarily already said three people at the beginning.
So it would be, right, but how would, so you would write between the three of us, or?
We learned a great deal.
Okay. I'm still trying to get something, though, in there. Do you?
I would just say the three of us learned.
Okay. Let me ask you that. Between the three of us, I think you know the answer.
Between, well, it's only between two people.
Never among, with two. So it's between uses two, among uses three or more. This is a very common mistake. I see this lie a lot of times. Relations between the United States and Germany and France. Relations between, no. The relations among those countries, if you're listing more than two. It's always between is two. Among is going to be two, three or more. So that's the first one. So even before you start getting on the other stuff, just focus on the basic stuff, the mistakes that you see there, okay, that you're gonna find out. But you're right. You could just say we learned a great deal. Per about your product. Okay, let's have some other. What do you guys think? Per about your product. Yes.
I would get rid of the per and just say about your product.
Yeah.
Comma, get rid of the which you feel is really practical, and be able to use it here.
Yeah.
Probably don't need to name the company.
Yeah. All good. Let me ask you about the which and that, or the which there. Is it a which or is it a that? Does that people know the difference? All right, guys. Number 2. Thing you're going to learn here. The difference between which and that. Most common mistake. All right? And once you learn this rule, you will never, ever be able to go back. Which always takes a comma before. If you cannot put a comma before the which, it is a that. And why? Because that is a defining phrase. I love that dress you're wearing. In language, in spoken English, we often say which when we really mean that. But it's a defining part of the sentence. It's a phrase, it's a part of the sentence that cannot be taken out. About your product, the product that we feel is truly practicable, and may be used by us here at Smithers. Second paragraph. We believe, okay, we believe what? Speak up, come on. We believe that, and then next one? You're the one. Who said who? Excellent. Why is it who? Because it's a person. Absolutely. That's another way of writing. And we're going to see how you could actually do what you're talking about. We believe you're the one who has the true facts. Okay. Talk about phrases here now. True facts. What do you see? Do you see anything wrong with true facts?
It's unnecessary. We'll just say
Right.
no.
Right. Well, when are facts not true, right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is an example of when you are reading something, and I think this is an exercise. I want you guys to now, henceforth, you're going to go back. When you write your emails, you're going to make sure that every single word counts. True facts. Facts, by definition, are true. Okay, you don't need that. That's an example, right, of an adjective that's redundant, whereas it's all, the essence of it is already in the noun that it's modifying. So we believe that you're one who has the true who has the facts. Read this matter based on your past experience. Again. Based on, based on your past experiences or past experience. You know what? I deleted. It's so jargony and so use real English, real words. Avoid jargon. Avoid that language that we're so comfortable with using because it becomes meaningless. You know, Regarding. So we'd like to, someone go ahead, do the next sentence. How about our molecular biologist? Okay, so the next phrase, when we're saying here, before we, how would you guys punctuate that? That sentence. Before we proceed.
How would we change?
Well, proceed. Anything wrong?
Proceed.
Proceed, correct. Sign a contract with you. We'd like to, what? Right. Pursue further. Do we really need further there, guys? No, we don't. Pursue some of the innumerable opportunities which you presented to us. Can you think of a word to take out? And also what after opportunities? Yeah, do we need which? No, we don't. Take it out. Flabby writing. Take it out. We hope you will be able to come up. We hope you will be able to come up with an ingenious solution to solve our quality control problem, which needs immediate fixing. Okay, can somebody give me a good way to rewrite that? Grammatically correct. Yes? Take out solve. That's right. Good. Another word that we could take out? Or a couple? Absolutely. And what about another phrase there that's right at the end? Right. If it's a problem, it needs fixing most of the time. Right? Per the above. Oh, gosh. Take that one. Go. Feel free to call me where? At the office. You know, I'm writing for you here. You don't need to say that. Or if you'd rather, we could meet again in the near future. Yeah. To discuss the matter in person. To discuss the matter, period. Okay. Rip the page off. Take a look at your second page. This is pretty much what we were doing. This shows you. And I'm sure, you didn't all catch these mistakes, but the exercise itself should be a useful one to show you the type of things that you're looking for. Now, what I want you to do is take what you marked up, your first page, and take the third page, and I want you to hold them side by side. All right? I want you to spend just a couple minutes. Let's look at that third page and look at it comparing it to that first page. What do you notice? What's the first thing you notice that's most obvious? Right. And then what do you notice besides that? Looking at the two. Just tear them off so you can look at them face. It's really helpful to look them side by side, I think. Shorter, more paragraphs. And it actually rephrases some of the sentences so it reads much better. Now, imagine if you were on the receiving end of this email, right? Always think of your audience and hear this person. I mean, if I got between these two emails, the second version, the writing right. Thank you for meeting with Jack, Sandra, and me yesterday. We learned a great deal about the practical side of your product that might be useful to us. We believe your experience and knowledge will be helpful in solving our quality control program. But we'd like to pursue a few other of the opportunities, and we'd like to pursue a few other of the opportunities you presented to us before signing a contract. If you have any questions, feel free to call me. Otherwise, I will contact you. Isn't that nice? Nice? Don't you get kind of like, this is the joy of my job. Good writing. So, yes?
The first line here would suggest that the point of this email is a thank you.
Yes. Yes. It's a thank you letter. And it adds offer. But that ultimately is what is the purpose of this email. Thank you for meeting with us. Always, always think. And sometimes it's really hard to get it in that first sentence. Sometimes it has to go in that first paragraph. But always in that first email, you should be able to, the recipient should be able to read your emails and know exactly what it is that you're trying to convey, the information you're trying to convey, or what it is that you need from them. So you send an email to a professor, you want to discuss your grades, you want to ask them for a letter of recommendation. That should always be upfront. And if it's writing to your professor or if it's writing to someone at another position or a job, you want to be a little bit formal. It's always better to go more formal than less. If you're not sure whether to address them by their first name, address them by their last name. And then if they write back to you and they sign off with their first name, then you can reply back with their first name. Don't assume. It's always, always better. I work at an organization that is rather conservative. We have a dress code. We have ways of interacting. And the one thing that I hear back from people who are running programs at the Council on Foreign Relations about new employees, or when they look at references, or when they look at resumes, the one thing that I hear them constantly saying is that, a lot of these people, they don't have the work experience. So what people are looking for is they want that sort of way of they're interested in you're having real practical life experience, work experience, which includes a sort of familiarity with email correspondence. And that's really your face. So those email correspondence that you're sending are incredibly important. Never send them on the fly. I myself probably read emails like disgustingly 3 to 4 times before I send them out. My family jokes because I sit there, and sometimes they're really short, and I cannot afford to make mistakes, so I sit there and I read every single word to make sure that everything's right. But I cannot stress enough how important it is, especially if you don't know the person that you're writing to, the impression that you make when you make a stupid mistake. So take the time to make sure that it's clear and concise. Yes?
With making a first impression, most times they're going to see the subject line. What would you advise with writing?
That's a very good question. I mean, it depends on what the email, it should be, and this is a really great question because I've actually recently started to, when I do a lot of reply, and so we get it going, but I've now started to change the subject line. So the subject line often repeats the essence of that first sentence. Submitting for approval, revised paper on blank. And that is sort of a summary of what the subject line is usually a summary of my first sentence. So, tips for how to write better. The 3 rules, okay, for good writing that always apply. Be clear, be concise, and be correct. If you follow these 3 rules, you will be a good writer. And I will tell you that being a good writer serves you for any job. I don't care if you're a scientist, a mathematician, a historian, an anthropologist. If you cannot convey your ideas to people in a clear, concise, and correct way, there's no point, right?
So, salutation at the end is something I always struggle with because I feel like sincerely is so overused right now. Just sounds trite almost.
Right.
So, I always like to use best regards, but I had a professor told me one time that it's too informal, and then I had professors say, why are you always so formal in emails? So.
Well, okay, in that case, this is when you could take the lead from them. If he's signing it off, hugs and kisses, Okay, maybe it's a little bit too much, but you could figure out some things like, best. I tend to say best, but occasionally I'll get people who have different salutations, their sign-offs, and I'll often use theirs in reply. Because if it's somebody I don't know, and I know that's their comfort, and that's how they're corresponding to me, I follow their lead. It's like dancing, right? Okay. I'm learning how. I'm doing it by the way that they're leading. I find that's very helpful. And it's usually, if they're using it, chances are that it is correct. So you don't have to worry about, well, is it too informal, or is it too not informal, or what's the best way? So that's how I would do it. But oftentimes, you just have to take a leap of faith. And people have different opinions too. So, yeah. So, writing well. Being clear. Being clear is means making it easy for the reader to understand what it is that you're trying to do. Now, let me ask a question. How many of you guys do outlines when you do a paper or a proposal? Excellent. Okay, outlines are really, really helpful. They're helpful for several reasons. Most importantly, because it allows you to check to make sure that each section contains one idea, and that there's enough evidence to support that idea, and that the sections flow. When I write, I often think of it, and I do a lot of writing, and a lot of jobs that you're going to go, or your future jobs, there will be times when you have to write proposals. You'll have to write something, a new budget, right? A request for something. And you want to make sure that you have a clear argument. And if it's more, you see, even if it's just a couple paragraphs, make sure that your opening introduction explains clearly what it is you want, and that the sections based on the outline support that request with a nice little summary at the end. Now, the most important thing is the first paragraph. Because if you can't get them at the first paragraph, it's going to be a problem. And I cannot tell you how many times it's almost like the abstract for a scientific report, right? And the first paragraph is going to deal with 4 questions. And this is the rule. If you're going to you want to write an op-ed for the New York Times or the Los Angeles Times, or even for your local school paper, that introduction is going to answer, most likely, 4 questions. 4 questions are, why is this subject important? I call it the why should I care, right? If you don't tell them why it's important, why should they bother to be reading this, right? You're writing on the law of the sea. Okay, why should I, tell me why. You know, right? You've studied this. You've spent your time working on this. Molecular biology. I'm sure you're working on something that's really important, which I, as a layman, may not know, but you have to tell me and explain to me why it is that this paper, as a layman, why it's important. Secondly, what's the conventional wisdom? What are other people saying about it? Because if you don't have that benchmark, right, it helps. That benchmark, always, always, always think of your audience. That benchmark tells them sort of what's the conventional reasoning or thinking about this. Third, why are they wrong? So you're talking about why is it important, what's the conventional wisdom, and why are they wrong? What is it that they're not getting? And fourth, what it is that your argument, your paper, or this presentation is going to offer that no one else has said. We're going to take a look after this section in the Foreign Affairs article, that one page I hand out, because that sort of conveys some of these thoughts that I'm going to hopefully talk to you about here, about being clear in your writing. Using short words. On the whole, I cannot tell you how many times, especially my daughter, who writes these sentences that go on for a long, long time. I can often break up her sentences into 3 sentences, and this is something that I find a lot. You should be able to. You should keep your sentences short. With this caveat, vary them for I call musicality. Okay, so you have something that goes da dun da dun da dum da dun da dun da dum da dun da dun 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 dun. Who's the music major? Right. It's like a symphony. Good writing. You read it out loud. You don't want something that has a rhythm to it, but it's like a composition where you have a certain rhythm to it, and all of a sudden, that 2-word sentence that breaks up that paragraph suddenly has such power because it stops you as the reader. Not always, just one way, not always. So you go, what is this about now? Use fancy words sparingly. I find a lot of people tend to, especially people before, as they're getting first into the profession, they like to impress people with their, fancy words. When I was in Foreign Affairs, the fancy word that everyone used was paradigm. Everyone was writing about paradigm. And we used to joke that was the killer. Like, if you wrote paradigm, we were not going to take the article. Because that's just jargon. You have to be able to explain that same sort of mindset or how it is that this new idea you have is a shift in thinking without using that word. Be specific and not vague. This is something I'm really, really proud of at the council. And when you go into government, occasionally Vagueness is helpful. Some treaties, I have edited documents that were consensus documents between the Republicans and the Democratic Party. And they're vague for a reason. You know, the Middle East peace treaties, as we know, those of you who study Middle East, or Russian, US-Soviet agreements, we know that those treaties sometimes were vague so that people could read into it. But on the whole, those are the exception, right? What you want is clear, concise writing, and I will tell you that that is so hard to be specific. Greater you know, the United States should engage in greater cooperation with the Soviet, or with Russia. Well, what does that mean? Specifically, what is greater cooperation? Tell me. The most important thing to remember is that you can't expect the reader to guess at what you mean or to make the connections that you're not making yourself. I think we all fall into this comfortable side of writing for ourselves with forgetting who the audience is. And the audience changes depending on what it is that we're writing. If you're writing an email to your friends or a text message, fine, go ahead and say hey all the time. You know, woo, yeah, haha, LOL. I mean, I'm learning, you know, what? But most of what we're going to focus on here are your professional development, your professional writing. And again, be conscious of who that audience is. Make sure you're specific. Don't make them have to guess at what it is. Be explicit on what it is. Now, looking at this Foreign Affairs article, this one page I just handed out, this is an issue that came out a couple years ago, 2 years ago. And I love it. Who wants to read just the first paragraph? Okay, yes.
Recent political debates in the United States and other advanced capitalist democracies has been dominated by two issues: the rise of economic inequality and the scale of government intervention to address it. As of 2012 presidential elections and the battles over the fiscal cliff have demonstrated the force of the left today is on increasing government taxes and spending, primarily to reverse the growing stratification of society, whereas the central focus of the right is on decreasing taxing and spending, primarily to ensure economic...
Okay, listen. Brandis, now I want you to take over from there, each side. Brandon, or?
Sir?
Each side minimalizes.
Sorry, I wasn't following.
That's okay. It's first paragraph, second to last sentence.
Each side minimizes the concerns of the other, and each seems to believe that its desired policies are sufficient to ensure prosperity and social stability. Both are wrong.
That's nice. Both are wrong. So he's setting up, right? He's telling you why the subject's important, what the conventional wisdom is, and then he's saying both are wrong. And then he's going to lead into what it is that really, what the situation really is, or what he sees it and how it should be seen. So again, when you guys go back to your newspapers, when you're reading the op-ed tonight, tomorrow, look at it. Ask yourself, do they ask those questions or answer these questions? Why is this subject important? What's the conventional wisdom? Why are they wrong? And what it is that this person has to say. Yes?
So, if I could ask, how do you do that then with a foreign essay, for example, an application essay?
Tough. Yeah, because that's a different type of application, right? I mean, now I haven't done the Bourne. My son just applied for a Fulbright. Well, he hasn't gotten it. He's applied. You can always apply. And I encourage you all. And I tell you, between you and me, it's probably a long shot. But I encouraged him to do it because I said it's a good exercise. And I don't know the Bourne, but I know it's also a language scholarship. But I can speak for the Fulbright. You don't do that. The Fulbright asks, one of them is more of a creative, and then you have this, I think it's like a purpose of work or something where you're supposed to talk about what it is that you would do with that country. And it has to be all on one page. This is an example of, okay, you want to know how to write that? I'm going to tell you guys another piece. This is my third bit of best advice I'm going to give today, okay? You're all going to go. You have Christmas coming up. Your mom and dad want to know what to buy you. You're going to send them an email tonight, correctly punctuated, saying, Dear Mom and Dad, colon or comma, I really want you guys to buy me this book, The Elements of Style. This is the illustrated version. There is the shrunken white without the pictures. Either one is fine. I will tell you that this is read by our president of the Council on Foreign Relations, Richard Haas, every year. And my supervisor, the senior vice president of the director of studies, Jim Lindsay, who used to run the the Lyndon B. Johnson Center at the University of Texas, Austin, he must read this. He must have this memorized. He quotes from this in passages. He's also one of the best writers I've ever met. And this book tells you, best bit of advice, and we're going to get to this, about omitting needless words. And so for the Boren, there is a word count or a page count? Character count? Okay. What do you have to do in that? What you need to do is you need to make sure that every single word is necessary to that construction of the sentence. What does that mean? Let me tell you. Listen to this. This is from Shrunken White, the Bible of writing. Vigorous writing is concise. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words, a paragraph, no unnecessary sentences. For the same reason that a drawing should contain no unnecessary lines and a machine no unnecessary parts. This requires not that the writer make all his sentences short, or that he avoid all detail and treat his subjects only in outline, but that every word tell. What is beautiful about this paragraph is he does precisely what he's describing. You can't take a word out of that paragraph without everything falling apart. Your Boren application should be the same. So my daughter's doing Common Apps. She's applying to colleges. They have I don't think it's a word count, not a character count. And one of her essays was 45 words over. And I literally had to sit there, and it was like a puzzle. Sitting there, figuring out how to shorten, how to make something concise, rephrase, and occasionally making that really difficult decision of, this is a nice phrase, but it's 8 words, and it's not necessary to the sentence, to the essay. So I would encourage everyone to go and read this book. E.B. White, we all know E.B. White, right? What did he write? And Stuart Little, and the world's best books, children's books. So we talk about children's books. Those are my 2 favorite children's books. So what he's doing, he's basically focusing on eliminating unnecessary words. Some examples. In an effort to could be rewritten as, at the present time, currently, now, due to the fact that, very good. So most of the time, I often find if I'm writing a letter, and or an email, I'm writing an email to my boss, and believe me, I have to make sure that this is perfect. Writing the email to my boss, I go through, I draft it, and then I go back and I make sure that I edit it down. I construct, I make sure that every single word there really, really matters. And I know this may sound a little OCD, and it is a little bit, but even being a little bit sensitive to it, you can see the difference, right, from that little exercise that we did, the first and the last page. So you can imagine with your audience, people that are going to be seeing, as you're applying for jobs, reading your emails, you have the ability to make an impression. I get hundreds and hundreds of emails and resumes and cover letters every day, or not every day, every year. I cannot tell you how many resumes I've looked over. I probably spend, a minute on each. That's what you guys have. A minute on each of your resumes and on each of your cover letters to impress the reader. So what is it that you're going to do that's going to somehow distinguish you from everyone else? And I can tell you that writing well, writing concisely, clearly, and correctly, meaning that there's no mistakes, is essential. Okay? So we're going to do some tips, some exercise now for writing concisely. You all have, I think, a handout I gave for adverbs and adjectives, right? Okay, let's take a look at that. So an adjective. Who knows what an adjective is? Ethan. Adjective describes nouns. What else? I'm sorry, let's do adverbs first. We've got adverbs. What does adverb do? Modifies a verb. What else does it modify? And other. Right, so it modifies verbs, adjectives, and other adverbs. It often ends in ly. That was when I first learned about adverbs. I learned, oh, they always end in ly. Not really. Most of them, not all of them. Believe me, if you try to look for that, you're going to make it wrong. But they basically they tend to quantify, intensify, or downtone what you're saying. They usually answer the questions how, where, how much, or why. Let's look at these examples. The cat jumped quickly onto the couch. Okay. Can we think of a way that we could do like 2 words and make it into one? Abigail, can you think? Jumped quickly? Sorry. Rachel. Yeah. Jumped quickly. What's another word for jump quickly? Jumped quickly. Hopped. What's some other ones? Leapt. There's an example. The born. You're doing a scholar. You're applying for something, and if you can get one word that describes what it would take 2 words, fabulous. The boy walked slowly and carefully out of the room. 1 word. Yeah, and it really, but yeah, tiptoed. So the words you use matter because it conveys different things, right? John ran quickly from the scene. Yeah. Get rid of those words, she said loudly and hastily. Shouted. This is one I really want you to understand this. What do you think is a word? Suppose you're trying to, what could you take out? Really. This is an example of an adverb used for emphasis and not for conciseness. And often you're doing yourself a disservice if you're trying to basically say, oh, this should be for emphasis. Oh, I really, 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 really want you to understand this, or I really, really want this. If you delete that and just say, I want this, it sounds much more powerful. It's going to have a bigger impact. This applies to what other word can you guys think? Besides really? Very. 9 out of 10 times, you take out very, it's going to be a more powerful sentence. I guarantee you. Such as the next one. It's very quiet here. It's quiet here. Okay? This is really quite fun. This is quite fun, I hope. Adjectives. Adjectives, as we said, describe noun or pronoun. Often tends to answer questions like what kind, how many, what exactly which. The rule with adjectives is adjectives should be deleted if the noun or the sentence implies the description that the adjective offers. Okay, so it's redundant. So you want to make sure that your adjective is telling us something that your noun absolutely cannot. Let's look at the first example there. The icy icicle hung from the ledge. Yeah, the icicle. The fragile glass shattered. Glass by definition is kind of fragile, right? The glass shattered. The hot summer sun seemed stagnant that summer day. Okay, give me 2 words you could take out of that sentence. Hot and the second summer. It was a horrible, horrible crime to shoot that woman. We don't need horrible, horrible. Obviously, it was horrible. Next one. The small baby didn't like the harsh cackle of the evil witch. Give me 3 words you could take out. Because witches tend, I mean, there are good witches, those of us who have seen something. Yes, but yeah. An adjective should be added, however, to replace a clause if it can replace a clause or a phrase and still convey what you want. So let's look at some of this example. Here we have the woman was very intelligent and knew all about physics. So what's another word for very intelligent and knew all about? What's one word? Knowledgeable. Right. Yeah, or educated in. With very little thought or care, the couple left the dog on the side of the road. With very little thought or care. What's one word? Yeah, irresponsibly. There are different types. I mean, there's no one answer for some of these, but you can see. The point is that you've got often people get wordy, right? And wordy is flabby. Right? You want to tone down your writing. You want to make it concise so that it's sort of almost, I mean, you know, I'm not really into this like muscular a la Hemingway type of writing, but it is this, that is really what Hemingway is famous for, right? He's taking writing to make it really count. Stephen King writes a lot beautifully using his adverbs and adjectives. He has this great book on writing well with the whole paragraphs on using adjective and adverbs effectively. And he's a terrific storyteller. Going on, he was deserving of the award. One word. He deserved the award. The haze of the atmosphere, I'm sorry, the haze of the atmosphere was thick. Or the atmospheric haze. This is one of my favorite. I see this a lot. A large number of, and then it was within the realm of possibility that it was. So the takeaway here, use adverbs and adjectives to make your meaning more precise. Don't use them for emphasis. Now you have a handout on empty phrases to avoid. Okay, I want to hear you guys all participating in this, okay? A majority of. Let me hear it, what? Excellent. A number of. Good. Well, a number probably going to be more many than some. Accounted by the fact that, as a consequence of, because, due to the fact that, are of the same opinion. At the present moment or the present time. By means of. By, or sometimes with, you can use also, I mean, you look in the sentence. Despite the fact that, or although, right? During the course of human history, during or while, for the purpose of, for, yeah, or just for, has the capacity of, if the conditions are such that, in all cases, always, inevitably, or invariably, in close proximity to, near, in conjunction with, what? Okay, in conjunction with or about, in conjunction with or concerning. This is one I really did have, I'm not joking. In my opinion, it is not an unjustifiable assumption that. You get a lot, academics, I tell you, it can be really wordy. They're smart as heck, but you know, they can just be, they would benefit from self-editing. Can we think of 2 words that maybe could replace that? Excellent. Right on. In order to. In the event that. It is clear that. Clearly, right? It is often the case that. What? Right? It is possible that the cause is. This is kind of. All right, so the cause may be. It is worth noting that, or note that. One of my favorite, I love when I write, I often put that, I'll put things, I love using, like, for example, the semicolon, because it punctuates the sentence. It forces the reader to stop, full stop, to look at the following list. So I often will say, note, blah, 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 or, in summary, it is my understanding, this is my understanding of the conversation, colon, blah, blah, blah. And I'll break it up with semicolons if that's more than one idea, which was an email that I wrote yesterday. I'm following up on a conversation that you had with Lori Garrett about blankety blank. It is my understanding this. And then later on the text, I wrote something and I said, I used exactly actually not true, but something that was going on, and it was basically not following the procedures that we have for something. And the beauty of sort of that type of writing is that you're basically breaking up the pace of the sentences. And these types of phrases and words, you know, do the same thing. They're just wordy. They're just, I mean, to me, it's like flabby writing. I don't even think of any other way to put it. This is going like lack the ability to, could not, large number of again. What? Many. Prior to. So we've talked here about being clear, being concise. Now we're going to talk about the most important thing, being correct. And why is being correct so important? Because the best writing can be sabotaged by incorrect information, bad grammar, and punctuation. And if nothing else, this is my, fourth takeaway for you guys. Sloppy writing is indicative of sloppy thinking. When you present yourself and you haven't carefully read something, you're indicating to the reader that you really don't care. And that's not true. After you've spent all this time working on your application, your cover letters, your resume, you want to make sure that once you have that substance there, that you've taken the time to make sure that all that information is correct. Spend the time to read it carefully. So I'm going to try to give you some strategies and tips on how to do that. This is going to be, if I ever write a book, I'm going to call it Mindful Editing. It's going to be editing for yogis. And the idea is that for those people who do a lot of writing, it's very easy to kind of get distracted. You've got so much going on. I read a lot during the course of my work. And I have a lot of things going on in my life. And I'm sitting there, I'll be reading something, especially economics, which is not my favorite subject, which is sometimes really dry. And I'll start sitting there reading it, and I'll be thinking, okay, now I got to go grocery shopping. And then after grocery shopping, I've got to be doing this. There's so much. I have to always come back and try to force myself to be mindful, to make sure that I'm focused on what it is that I'm writing. I have to make sure that my mind doesn't wander, and paying careful attention, not only to the presence of words, but to the absence of words. Because sometimes, you've probably seen these signages where they'll do these grammar things where there's a word missing. And we put that word in, we insert it ourselves very easily. And so sometimes I will be known to actually sort of read backwards, sort of for correcting for spelling, punctuation and stuff, and then reading the phrase back forward again to make sure that every single word I'm reading. How you read matters too. So I often find out from my reading, I read aloud. I find that very helpful. Now, for an email or a cover letter, or for a Boren application or a Fulbright, you should feel comfortable that you should be able to read it. And what you're wanting to do is you want to basically see how it sings. Very useful, I find, is to keep a style sheet. So errors tend to fall in patterns. A style sheet will keep track of those patterns with a list of words that you often misspell. Now, what is a style sheet? Does anybody know? It's really simple. It's a piece of paper. All it means is this. Style itself is one correct use over another. So each newspaper that you read, any academic journals you apply for or that you work for, or many organizations, the federal government, have their own style sheets. And they decide that we're going to use this, we choose this spelling of a word over another. Tor words, with an S or without? Well, it depends, right? Tor words with an S in British, most British dictionaries. But thank God for Webster. Daniel Webster came here, decided to simplify British words. And those words that he felt we could do without that letter, he took off. Labeled, for example, not a double L, although it is in English. In British English, in American English, it's one L. So it's not that one is necessarily correct over the other so much as that you're saying towards with an S, but not without an S in another passage. The stupid mistakes are when you have towards with an S and towards without an S in the same paragraph. So as you're going through, and if you find mistakes that you're making, just keep a note of them so that you can go back afterwards and search for that. But I'm glad you said without, because that's what I think too. That's how I do it. That's what I would solve. Skim for sentences that begin with there is, there are, or it is. All right? Those are word groups that signal that you're holding off to getting to the subject of the sentence. So for example, it is the United States that needs to would be rewritten as, again, you know, in your emails, letters, applications, make sure every single word counts and is essential. Don't also rely on spell check. Okay, I worked in foreign affairs, and you know, spell check can be a bit misleading. We had an article that was going to press on pubic opinion. Yeah. That's the other one. Sorry, I've got 2 kids, so that's it, no more. Yes, seriously, it's seriously. A spell check, there, won't catch, tutu, right? So to sum up, basically, to write well, to strive to sort of be a good critical reader, be clear, be correct, be concise. And I want to talk about just some strategies I have when you're writing. You're all going to be writing papers, or you're all written papers, you're all going to be writing more papers, writing cover letters, writing a resume. So as you're sitting down and you're doing that, especially for longer papers, my first suggestion, like when you have, how many of you are going to have exam papers to submit before the end of the semester? Wow. Really? 20 pages. Okay. So do you wait to the last minute? All right, you don't. Well, my suggestion is when you have a long paper, I know we all like to wait to the last minute, but try to give yourself some distance to take between the time you've written it and you go back to it. I know my son does a lot. I mean, he doesn't follow this advice, so I mean, take it as you will, with a grain of salt. But I truly think you do a disservice waiting until the last minute. Having the opportunity to take frequent breaks, giving yourself the chance to edit and proofread your material instead of doing it all once at a block of time. I mean, they've done studies, scientific studies, that have proven or shown that your concentration only works at 90-minute blocks. That's really what you can do. So get your 90 minutes, and then go take your walk. Go get your ice cream. Go phone your mom, tell her you love her. And then come back and spend your next 90 minutes to sort of go back to your work after you've cleared your head. Make time, as I've said, make sure that you have time between your writing and your revising. And change your place. How many of you print copies of your papers before you submit them? Just, okay, anybody else? Okay, I find it's really helpful because, you know, if you're doing a lot of your writing on the computer, you tend to see it one way. When you see it printed, it's a different experience, reading experience, especially if you change the font, or you change the size, or you change the color, or the shape. It's as if it's forcing you to see a new document. So I will often print things and read it on the subway down to my office or read it back. Almost every single thing that is, if it's an important document that I have to submit to the council for proposals or budget assessments and stuff, which are, you know, good 10 to 15 pages. And these are being read, you know, by people that used to work in the White House. So the standards are very high. I can't do any slacking. And especially, you know, given my job, I'm expected to have everything pretty much in really perfect grammar and spelling and such. So it's very important for me to make sure that I have that time. And I find that reading a hard copy, marking it up is very, very helpful. Staying focused. I find with 2 kids who are, one's 18, the other's 21, The most frustrating part, and also working with younger colleagues, is that a lot of them, as they're writing, have their digital devices handy. They have their Facebook accounts open, or their Gmails, or their texts. So I won't ask how many people do that. But I really encourage you to turn it off, even if it's just half an hour to an hour when you're really at that critical part of writing, or it's some creative thing that you're doing. It's, you know, we're all sort of distracted. We've got all this stuff going on, but you need to be focused. And the theme of, or the idea of multitasking, I think, is just a myth. Really, you want to take the time and put the energy and the effort to do that. And again, use your voice. Read the paper out loud. Listen to it. If you put yourself to sleep, chances are you're going to put somebody else to sleep too. You know? Read for order and sense. So consider the order of your paragraphs to see if you drift off the main point. Check to see what each paragraph is doing. Note the details, examples. Do you have enough in a paragraph? Do you need more? As well as read for flow. That's sort of like overall, you know, coherence. Often, if I'm reading I'm proofreading or reading somebody else's document, I will read the last sentence of each paragraph and the following first paragraph. I'll see that the transitions work so that it flows really nicely. I mean, when you have a beautifully written piece of paper, it really, really matters. And lastly, use friends. You guys are all here, and you have colleagues. You're writing your essays, you're writing your papers, you're writing your cover letter. Share it. Your friends have sometimes the best advice in terms of, well, I think it's to this or to that. And especially use the resources you have here at BYU. I mean, you have all these centers, you have these terrific staff that are here to help you. You know, that's why you're here at the university, to see your professors, go to office hours, get to know these people. These are the resources that you want to be able to use and that are so invaluable. And all of these people are here to help you. That's what they care about. They care about all of you doing well. And you should take advantage of that because they want that. I'm going to end right here to see if we have any questions people might like. Yes. You can just speak out. I think.
Actually, so I have this mic recording right now. You can come to the mic and ask your question. We'll have your questions available.
Great. We have until what, 2:30, right?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Come on over to the mic.
So.
My question really isn't that exciting, but I was just wondering.
Questions. All good questions are good questions.
I was just wondering what was the last book that you read and what you liked about it.
Last book I read was The Bell Jar. I reread it. I read it originally in college, and I'm really now on this trip of doing rereading books because you read books differently at different points in your life. So I'm going back, and I went back. I have a mother-daughter book club, which is one of the best things I ever did with my daughter. So we've been with her best 5 friends and their mothers, and we had in the course of the last 4 years have read several books. In The Bell Jar, we started with Tree Grows in Brooklyn, which is a terrific book, and then The Bell Jar was the last one that we read for that. Also now I brought with me, I was so proud because I usually carry about 50 books with me, well not really 50, but maybe like 5, and I only brought 2. And that one is Jane Eyre, which I'm just got out of Woodland, and I will have confession to make. I've never read the book, and so I am enjoying it so much. I love it. It's fantastic. It's really good. But if you came to my apartment in New York, you would see a huge number of books, and many of them are halfway read. So I'm very proud that I've actually finished several in the last couple of months. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you believe one of the best ways to improve your writing is to actively read?
Absolutely, and absolutely. I cannot say that enough. It's like being a musician without really playing an instrument, you know. It really helps to, or listening to other, you know, music. There is a tremendous joy I get from reading good writing. And it doesn't, you know, I will read anything. I will read books about science, natural history, Jewish history. I go through the history is anything. I mean, I go through different phases. I'm into a real Lincoln phase right now. But a good writer, I mean, that is something that I cannot tell you how important it is. And actually, I'm really proud. My brother is a math professor here. And he teaches a lot of really hardcore, hands-on math classes. But he reads fiction, and it's wonderful. I think it's really enriched his life. It makes him a better writer, and I think that's true for anyone. You read. Also, you know, when you read, you start to develop skills of reading critically, in the sense of you read carefully. You know. I'm still trying to get through some of the Middlemarch, but her punctuation just gets to me, and that's why I haven't been able to get past the first 30 pages, but I'm trying to get over that. So,
Thank you.
We'll see.
I was actually wondering about your master's and
Yes.
how it was most beneficial to you. Was it beneficial to go and do a master's program?
Okay, I'm going to tell you a secret. A lot of times you think, I'm going to have this plan and I'm going to do it. Most people I know who ended up, many of the jobs that they ended up, never really knew that they were going to end up there. I'm very good friends with the new publisher of Foreign Affairs. I knew her when she first came on board doing circulation, and this would have been 15 years ago. Now she's publisher. If you had told her 15 years ago, you're going to be publisher of Foreign Affairs magazine, she would be like, are you joking? She grew into that position. She went to business school while she was working. For me, my master's, why did I do that? I switched over. I was going to be a history professor, and I always wanted to do history, and then I went and spent a year abroad. I loved all things English, and this is before Harry Potter. I mean, I came back with an English accent. My mom, she didn't know what had happened. And I fell in love with international relations. All of my friends were going on to law school. Most of my women friends were no longer practicing, but they are going to law school. I did not want to do law. I realized I probably wasn't going to be a good lawyer. But I thought, okay, maybe if I don't do history, maybe I'll go to grad school, because that's what you do, right? I had no clue. I basically just applied. And I got into Columbia and to Georgetown. My parents didn't want me to go to New York by myself. They thought it was too dangerous. So they thought, you know, you can go to Washington, so that's less dangerous.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? And I went to the program there. It was small. It was fabulous. Did I really probably take full advantage of it? Not really. I was probably wandered a lot more until I got, I hate to say this, maybe I'm a late bloomer, you know, and suddenly around the age of 30, about the time I think when I started thinking seriously about having kids and family, and, you know, started thinking about my job professionally. And as far as, you know, editing, when I went and was given that position, I really didn't know anything. So what I used to do is, at the time the magazine was 4 issues a year, as opposed to now 6. And each editor was responsible for an article. So all those, we have issues, I'm happy to say there's at the back of the room, there's these flyers that I brought out from the council, including free issues of Foreign Affairs, information about our internship, our fellowship, as well as if you're interested in subscription, cheap subscription as a student for Foreign Affairs, and about the council. So I really encourage you all to take the material. But the magazine, they have 3 editors at that time, and each of you were responsible for anywhere from 3 to 4 articles. And you owned that article. And so you would edit the article and think, okay, now I've got it perfect. You know, because you would have other editors read your article. And I mean, everybody read it. The executive assistant. There was no hierarchy here. Everyone had the ability to read critically, whether you were the editor, the managing editor, or the executive assistant to the managing editor. We all read each other's work. And I would get their edits back, and I would collate them. And I was really, my goal was to always not have any comments, to have a perfect paper. And I would, at the end of the day, I would take my managing editor near the blue lines when we would get close to production. he would collate everyone's reads or everyone's edits. I would edit a document or an article. I would Xerox it. I would give it to the managing editor, and the next day he would collate all of the edits and put them out ready for the printer. This is like pre-computer time, a long time ago. And I used to compare his edits, which he had seen everyone's, right? Collated everyone's, and compare it with mine. And for a year, during production, I would stay at the office until 7 or 8 at 9 o'clock, going through and reading what I had missed, focusing not what I'd caught, but the things that I had missed, the errors that I had not caught. And that's why this exercise I was hoping was helpful, because I wanted you guys to see what the things you miss, how easy it is. Like, it's really easy when you edit, you go, oh, that's great, right? And then you look at, oh man, I should have seen this. I didn't catch that one. Or this is another way of rewriting it. And that was probably the best editing, and I'm still learning. I don't do as much hands-on editing. I'm more overseeing the department. I do a lot more management, but I love it, and certainly, it was very helpful. So the long answer to your short question about my master's was it was just happenstance. And after I got my master's, I still didn't know what I was going to do. So I applied for a PhD program at Columbia and went through everything but the dissertation. I'm what's called ABD, all but dissertated. And I was going to write my dissertation, but I went to the council, and life happens, and it was a real transition. And then I worked for the magazine, and I got married, and I had kids, and I realized that writing a dissertation was a lot of work, and I wasn't sure that I would be, jobs in academia are really tough. And I had a pretty great job working as an editor, doing what I loved, and I wasn't sure that putting that time and effort would really make a difference. So I never finished it. In theory, I still can, maybe one day, but I'm much more interested in other things now. So we'll see. All right, well, thank you so much, guys. I appreciate you all coming. Thank you.